Welcome back to another vlog. Today, it's Thursday, January 8th, and I'm here at the Rally Sports Bar where I'm going to play a low-stakes poker tournament as a part of the Eastern Poker Tour. Now to note, since this is low stakes, there will be no dealers until the final table. We start with 30,000 in chips and blinds are 100, 200. So right after we sit down for the first rotation, we don't get any good hands. But now, I'm in the big blind after we see under the gun +1 middle position and the small blind limp. I look down at ace 4 of spades, so I squeeze to 800. In a lot of low stakes tournaments, we see a lot of players limp early just trying to see a flop with any cards. We see that the 9 of clubs gets exposed and the under the gun +1 and middle position fold. The small blind elects to call and we're off to a flop. Now this flop doesn't entirely smash our range, but when it comes jack, 5, 4 with 2 clubs, it's not always the most likely that the small blind made a pair. So we're going to standard c-bet for 1,200 and the small blind folds and we're going to win the first pot we play. Right after knocking down that pot with ace 4 of spades, I'm under the gun +1. The blinds are still 100, 200. So with pocket deuces, I decide to limp with plans on calling any pretty much marginal raise unless it's a ridiculous price. So when we see the low jack raise to 1,100, we also see the small blind make the call. And with a pocket pair at this point in the tournament, it's very early. So I wanted to see a flop. Maybe we can set mine and get paid from there. So we go to a flop, which comes ace, 6, 7 with 2 spades. We do have the deuce of spades, but when the small blind donk bets, I have no intention of calling, so I just throw away my cards. In this hand, blinds are 200, 400. I'm in middle position, and we see under the gun limp, under the gun +1 limp. And I look down at my cards, and I have a suited ace, ace, deuce of diamonds. So, at this point in the tournament, a lot of people just want to see flops, so we're not going to let that happen for a cheap price. I decide to lead out for 1,500, which we then see the big blind look at his cards, and he makes the call. We see the initial under the gun limper decide to throw away his cards, and under the gun +1 decides he wants to come along and see a flop. So, we're in position. We go 3 ways to a flop, which then comes 8, 5, 4. We have a straight draw, and we have backdoor diamonds. Now, this doesn't entirely smash our range because the big blind who makes the call and the under the gun +1 who limped initially kind of have the range advantage for these cards. So I gotta decide to bet out big and push those draws or small pairs. So I decide to lead out for 1,700 into a pot of about 4,000. We see the big blind get out the way, and under the gun +1 is very curious and probably has a pair, but we have backdoors to the nuts, and a 3 would bring in the wheel. So regardless, we're gonna try to push him around on later streets. So he makes the call for 1,700. We still have an overcard, but another overcard to the board comes, which is the queen of diamonds. So now we have a straight draw to any 3, and we have a draw to the nuts with any diamond. We still have an over with an ace, so when I get checked to, I put pressure on any marginal hand. So right here, I decided to bet out for 2,500. We immediately put the under the gun +1 in the tank, and he verbally says, my 8's probably no good, and he throws away his cards, so we're gonna scoop a nice pot early. Blinds are 200, 400. I'm under the gun +1, and I look down at pocket queens. So I decide to bet kind of big for this point, but 1,500 is a reasonable price because I don't want these low unsuited aces limping in and out flopping me, which we don't get any hands to limp in with us, and it folds around, and we only scoop the blinds. Right? I hate picking up monsters and getting no action, but I hate when I get outflopped even more. This next hand gets absolutely crazy. Blinds are 200, 400. And we see low jack, high jack, cut off, all limp. Me being on the button with king 8 of diamonds, I decide just to make the call. The big blind also does the same. The flop comes 8, 3, king. We absolutely smash top 2 pair in this limp pot, and we have backdoor diamonds. We see the big blind and low jack check it down to the high jack, who bets out for 1,600. This is pretty much a dream spot because this player probably has a decent king that we can milk for value and get paid on. It gets even better when the cutoff makes the call, and that's 1,800 he'll never see again. This is a perfect spot to put in the raise. I have top 2 pair on a very dry board, and we always have the best hand here. So I make it 4,200 to go, which gets the big blind and low jack to fold. This hand takes a huge turn when we get snap jammed on by initial hijack aggressor. I'm going to let you guys listen to the live audio.
Like, that's just brutal. Beat everything but threes. I beat literally everything but threes.
Right now, when I'm in the tank, I have absolutely no idea what to do. I have top 2 pair on this super dry board, but I don't know what I could possibly be getting jammed on by. Most people would just snap call and put their entire tournament life at risk, but for some reason, I feel like I'm beat. I don't think my opponent limped with aces. Even if he did, I have that beat. There's no way he didn't raise with kings, being scared of an ace coming on that board. He probably would have raised eights. The only thing that makes sense is pocket threes. I end up making the fold, and my opponent shows a set of threes. So he made the correct decision for our tournament life this early in the tournament. In the comments, let me know if you could have made this fold, and let me know how I could have played the hand better. In hand number 6 of the tournament, blinds are 300, 600. We see under the gun +1 raise to 1200. The cutoff, button, and small blind call. So with the pot odds, I'm getting queen 6 of spades. Because it's suited, I have the right pot odds to make a call. We go 5 ways to a flop, hoping to flop a flush draw, or maybe some sixes or queens. Unfortunately for us, we don't see any spades, any queens, or any sixes. The board runs ace, 7, deuce with 2 diamonds. We see under the gun +1, c-bet for a third 300, and there's no reason for us to put any more chips in the pot. We see the cutoff carving out some chips, and he ends up making the call. So if there was ever a reason to stay in the hand, that takes it away, and we fold. In this next hand, this is a move that I usually use late in the tournament when players are playing way tight, but my opponent in the big blind is very tight and folds probably 90% of hands if he's not the aggressor. So I look down at 3-4 offsuit, and I raise to 2,000 on his big blind, and surely enough, he doesn't have a good card, so he folds and we pick up his blind. Blinds are 400, 800. I'm the big blind with 8, 9 of hearts. Low jack can open to 2,000 with the small blind calling, and I have a very good hand that plays very well post flop, so I make the call as well.
3 ways.
We're 3 ways to a flop, which runs out 9, 5, 3, all of clubs. So when I get checked to by a small blind, I fire up for 3,000 for protection. When we hit top pair on this board, I'm never worried about a kicker. I'm always worried about the club draw, so I don't want someone getting a free card and taking the lead with a baby flush. So our donk bet works, and we take down this pot. Just a few hands after I made a tournament-saving hero fold against pocket threes, I'm in the small blind, and I look down at pocket threes. Under the gun +1, the cutoff, and button limp. Blinds are 400, 800, so it's only 800 to call. Usually I don't like limping, and I really hate limping, but with a hand like this that plays very well post-flop, I either flop a set or I get out, I'm going to make the call. The board runs out deuce, 6, queen, rainbow. I check, having no intention to put any more chips in this pot, but we get a free card once it checks around. Now the board pairs, bringing in the deuce of hearts. I check once more, maybe I'll call a bet if I feel like something's fishy. But it checks around to the button, who then fires out a small bet of 1,600. I think about it for a second, but I really don't think my opponent has a made hand in this spot. Maybe they could have like 3-4 or 3-5 offsuit, and they're just trying to knock down this pot with backdoor equity. We go to a river heads up, and it comes in the 4 of hearts. So I check. I pretty much have intentions to make any call on the river because I called the turn. So my opponent bets out for 3,000. I really don't know what kind of bluffs there are. I guess there's a lot. Maybe there's a lot of ace highs that are thin value betting or trying to just knock it down. But anyways, I'm curious and I want to see my opponent's cards. So I throw in the 3,000, and my opponent shows jack 3 of hearts for a river flush. Our read on the turn was correct, but the river didn't help us out and we lose this pot. In this next hand, I'm on the button. Blinds are still 400, 800. I look down at 5, 6 of diamonds. If you play a lot of GTO solvers, then this is pretty close between a raise and just a call. But I'm aggressive. My opponent's behind, and the blinds need to have a really good hand to qualify and make a call. So I raise for 1,800, and both the blinds fold. So we pick up a big blind and a half. I'll take it. Still on the same level of 400, 800 blinds. We're playing 7-handed with 1 dead stack, and 2 players are in the bathroom. So when only 5 players at the table, I'm going to get more aggressive. I raise to 1,600. and the only person to come along is the big blind. The big blind says he doesn't have a good hand, but he wants to give me action. So I'll take it, knowing we're probably ahead. The flop comes 3, 6, deuce. Most worlds, this should absolutely smash the big blind's range. But he could also have like a lot of 9, 10 offsuits. So when we announce a bet for 1,600, a standard C bet, my opponent beats us into the middle, but instead of putting his chips, he puts his cards. So we're going to knock down this pot, and every chip matters, so I can never complain about getting thin value. After 3 levels, I'm a little bit above starting stack. I look down at ace, queen offsuit, and under the gun +1. Blinds are 400, 800, so I pick a pretty decent bet sizing for opening, and I raise to 1,800. The low jack takes a second to think about his action, considering calling, raising, or folding. He ultimately ends up folding, so does everyone else in the hand. So we don't get any action with ace queen off, which is a little unfortunate, but who knows, maybe we got outflopped by a lower ace, and I will just take the blinds. Let me know how I could have played this hand better. I'm in the cutoff with average stack. Average stack is between 35,000 and 40,000. When it folds to me and I see I have a pair of 5s, I pick a kind of decent bet sizing because I don't want bad hands like 9, 10, or any hands that hypothetically we're flipping with to come along. However, the big blind, already in for 1,200, decides to add the 2,000 and make the call. We go to a flop, which comes 7, 8, 8.
55.
For our range, this is kind of a bad board because the big blind has removal of all the 7s and 8s. So I bet out a big bet size for 5,500, pretty much trying to get any 2 overcards or backdoor draws to make the fold. However, after giving it some thought, our opponent decides to make the call. At this point, I'm hoping he has a hand like 5, 6, maybe 9, 10, and then the turn brings in the worst card we could possibly have, the 7 of spades. So now there's a spade draw, and I'm drawing dead to any 7 or 8, and I can't rep over pairs because if he has a 7 or 8, I'm still behind. So I put pressure on any hand that's not a 7 or 8. I bet out for 8,200. Shortly after that, our opponent puts his entire stack in the middle, and we just know we're beat. So instead of Hollywooding, I pretty much just snap muck knowing we're behind. Later in the tournament, he told me he had Jack 8 suited, so we were behind. Just one hand after I punted off almost half my stack with a pair of 5s, I'm in the small blind with blinds being 600, 1,200. We see action fold to the cutoff, who then folds. We also see the button fold. I look down at king jack offsuit, and with about 20,000 in my stack, I just jam on the big blind because he has to wake up with a really, really good hand for him to even be ahead of me, which he ends up making the fold. And this is the point in the tournament where every big blind matters, so even if we can make our stack 1/10 bigger, I'm willing to do it. With a hand like king jack in that position, you pretty much want to see 5 cards. There's no point in raising, getting 3-bet, or even going to a flop. So jamming was definitely the right decision there, and we're off to the next hand. Blinds increased to 1,000, 2,000. This is the point in the tournament where a lot of people are starting to finally bust, and the smaller stacks are looking to gamble to try to double up. We're in the button, and we see under the gun +1 open to 6K. She's not playing very deep, however, she probably has me covered by maybe 10,000. So I just make the call. We see the action fold to the big blind, who then decides he wants to put his entire stack in the middle, and he only jams for 6,000 more. It's only 12,000 total, but it reopens action, and which I'm expecting the under the gun +1 raiser to jam to isolate. But when she doesn't do that, I kind of think it's weak. So when she just makes the call, I put my entire stack in the middle. It's a decent size more. I jammed for over 32,000 total, so now it's 20,000 more to call. So she has to have at least probably like ace 10 to qualify, or maybe 8s, 9s, 10s. And when she takes her time, I'm kind of thinking I'm ahead. She ends up making the fold pretty quickly. So I take the chips back that I do not owe. And there's no side pot, so we are still flipping for 36,000. However, I'm way ahead of my opponent, who shows 4 or 5 of spades. So the flop comes 10, king 8. He turns a 5, but we river a jack. So we go down and we win this pot. We scoop 36,000, which is a lot at this point in the tournament, and we get almost a double up. For the rest of 1,000, 2,000 level, I fold. I didn't get any hands that were worth playing. Now it's 2,000, 4,000. I'm a little bit deeper, and now I'm under the gun. I have 9, 10 of spades, a hand that plays very well post flop. So I limp with intentions to make a call to any decent size raise. I guess I set the tone, and the button limps, the small blind makes the call, and then the big blind checks. So we're 4 ways to a flop, which comes queen, 7, 3, rainbow. Small blind checks, the big blind checks. I don't want to put any more chips in this pot. I'm going to see another card. So I check, and the button checks as well. The turn brings in the flush draw when it comes to 5 of spades. So another round of checking from the small blind and big blind. So once action gets to me, I bet out for almost pot and 12,000, and we instantly get snap jammed on by the button, who only is in for 25,000. So it's only 13,000 more to call. The small blind takes this into consideration, thinking he might be ahead. However, he looks at his cards one more time, gives it another thought, and announces fold. The big blind gets out of the way, and now I'm priced in, and it's only 13K to win 53K. So with pot odds, I make the call. And we actually were pretty much flipping with our opponent, who jammed with ace high. However, no 9, 10, or spades saved us on the river. After getting punished and almost losing 75% of my stack, my phone actually died and my meta glasses did not record the final hand. However, we see a button raised to 12,000, blinds are 2,000, 4,000. I have ace 10 of diamonds in the big blind. I jam for almost 30,000, and I get called by the button raiser, who has pocket nines. We see the flop run out, king, 7, jack, rainbow. The turn doesn't help us with a 4 of clubs, and then the river 8 of diamonds puts us to bed. So unfortunately tonight we fall short of the money bubble, but please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll have another vlog up this week. I'm probably going to play on a Saturday night, so please stay tuned for more hands coming. Check out my Instagram daily, and thank you for watching.